Headline edition. Gray alien saucer secret in Pentagon Libya briefings. Vice Admiral William E. Gortney unconsciously suggested the role of a spaceship during today's Pentagon briefing concerning what is now being described as NATO-led military operations in Libya. The coded communication was only the most recent in a series of disclosures from U.S. Navy commanders documented by a Vancouver audio lab detecting secret messages encrypted backwards within the spoken reports. During Tuesday's briefing, Admiral Samuel Locklear involuntarily described how the saucer of a gray alien played a role in the conflict as well. This story is featured in a new article in the Vancouver UFO Examiner for Examiner.com. Canadian Defence Minister Peter MacKay said today that Lieutenant General Charles Bouchard has been designated to lead the campaign in Libya against Muammar Gaddafi's forces. Britain's Telegraph newspaper reports there are now 435 Canadian Forces personnel deployed in Libya using CF-18 jets to bomb weapons depots. East Vancouver residents will recall how Mayor Gregor Robertson was pressured into allowing a CF-18 to fly at an altitude of 500 feet over residential neighborhoods for the BC Lions season opener in June 2010. According to witnesses near the event, noise pollution and sonic shock waves resulting from this military psychological warfare mass conditioning exercise invoked the specter of a jet airliner crashing into tower complexes. Earlier, Vancouver had been subject to unprecedented noise pollution, privacy invasion, and psychological conditioning by the continuous presence of black, unmarked helicopters alongside military aircraft operating throughout the city prior to and during the 2010 Winter Olympics. The open-source analytic methodology used in detecting the secret messages of U.S. Navy commanders reflected a graph of their digitally sampled speech across the y-axis, enabling audio playback and monitoring in reverse. The messages detected through this procedure are formed by unconscious processes related to sleep talking and Freudian slips. These communications repeatedly provide involuntary disclosures that reveal hidden contents of the speaker's unconscious mind. Examiner.com has previously reported how such analysis has proven effective in the gathering of intelligence for military, political, forensic, clinical, and UFO disclosure applications. Examiner.com has also reported how Vancouver-based investigative research studying the detection of secret messages encrypted backwards within the human voice fulfills legacy demands from the scientific community for an advanced technique of UFO witness interrogation. Eminent researcher and U.S. government UFO scientist Dr. J. Allen Hynek wrote in his book, The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry, how the 1960s U.S. Air Force Project Blue Book was a cover-up to the extent that the assigned problem was glossed over for one reason or another. Dr. Hynek wrote, "In my many years' association with Blue Book, I do not recall ever one serious discussion of methodology, of improving the process of data gathering, or of techniques of comprehensive interrogation of witnesses." The method used in the Vancouver study complies with the standards and results of a published study in which human listeners monitored speech sounds that had been subject to various degrees of mirror filtering in order to measure their relative intelligibility under highly filtered conditions. Commenting on the results of this study, Britain's prestigious Royal Society noted how it is remarkable that speech remains reasonably intelligible even under conditions of extreme distortion, such as time reversal of segments of speech. The authors of the study told Nature, one of the premier publications in science, how we have studied the intelligibility of speech and find it is resistant to time reversal of local segments of a spoken sentence. One of the authors, distinguished University of California Irvine Professor of Cognitive Sciences, Kourosh Saberi, even went so far as to state how speech is a multidimensional stimulus. There are different ways you can extract a message from it. Here is a Pentagon secret message timeline outlining the dates of the statements from Navy commanders and the secret messages detected that were encrypted backwards within them. Here is Vice Admiral Gortney from March 20th, 2011.
Shown here is a representation of coalition strikes against Gaddafi's ground maneuver forces about 10 miles south of Benghazi. 15 U.S. Air Force and Marine Corps aircraft participated in these attacks, as well as aircraft from France and Great Britain. They were backed up by U.S. Navy EA-18G Growlers providing electronic warfare support. Full battle reports from these strikes are still coming in, but we judge these also to have been quite successful at the halting regime's ground movement in this region.
The secret message says, Alien Cilia.
Alien Cilia. Alien Cilia. Alien Cilia.
Here is Admiral Locklear from March 22nd, 2011.
Today, in the era of our responsibility, our coalition has multiple ships and submarines, highlighted by the French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, who I had the opportunity to visit yesterday, Italian aircraft carrier Garibaldi, and the amphibious assault ship USS Kearsarge. There's numerous coalition land and sea-based aviation assets to include reconnaissance, early warning, attack, fighter aircraft.
The secret message says, saucer of a gray alien.
Saucerava, very imid. Saucerava, very imid. Saucerava, very imid.
Here is Rear Admiral Jared Huber from March 23rd, 2011.
Saucerava, very imid. Saucerava, very imid. Saucerava, very imid.
The secret message says, the Gray Ebony.
The Gray Ebony. The Gray Ebony. The Gray Ebony.
Here is Vice Admiral Gortney from March 25th, 2011.
Logistics and tanker support, surveillance, the ships, no-fly zone aircraft. And when I mean no-fly zone aircraft, those are aircraft that are assigned only to fly an air-to-air mission to enforce the air-to-air mission in the no-fly zone. And finally, there's the civilian protection mission, which is an interdiction mission that will involve expending of ordnance. And then, of course, the subordinate command and control and support staff, a key element.
The secret message says, spaceship.
Spaceship. Spaceship. Spaceship.
In biology, cilia are hair-like structures on cells whose wave-like motion allow the cells to manipulate their environment or to move around. Artificial cilia developed by scientists using arrays of flexible polymer nanorods that contain iron oxide particles can be manipulated magnetically in studies that attempt to mimic the movements of cilia in nature. New Scientist reports how, inside the lungs, cilia wiggle back and forth, pushing mucus and potentially harmful airborne particles through the respiratory system. In this way, they play a crucial role in protecting it from disease. The reference, Weapons of Mass Destruction, an encyclopedia of worldwide policy, technology, and history, states that biological weapons must therefore rely on aerosols for effective dissemination. Nearly all known BW agents must be produced and delivered in very small particles, ranging from about 1 to 10 microns in average diameter. Particles ranging between 1 to 10 microns are more likely to lodge themselves into the very small alveoli, the tiny air sacs in the lung where oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged during respiration. Here, the alveolar wall is only about 2 microns thick, and pathogens can pass into the bloodstream. Particles larger than 10 microns are more apt to be caught in the upper respiratory tree and in the nasal passages. Many of these larger particles, instead of starting an infection, are instead brought back up and out by cilia, the tiny hairs that line the inner surfaces of the respiratory system. These particles are then gradually taken away by the body's own mechanisms for removing foreign matter, and they are thereby rendered harmless. Is alien cilia a reference to ET nanotechnology backwards engineered from crashed UFOs, applied to bioweapons research and dispersed as chemtrails by aircraft operating in Libya? Questions still remain regarding the nature of the mechanical failure that brought down the U.S. F-15E earlier this week. Numerous reports of previous encounters involving Air Force fighter jets engaging UFOs include an F-89 that disappeared near the U.S. and Canadian border. The term saucer, as in flying saucer, has been identified in the unconscious communications of well-known UFO abductees, including Betty Hill and Betty Andreasen Luca. Ibani is a term used in Mexican ufology to describe an unidentified aerial biological entity, a form of UFO or extraterrestrial spaceship. Perhaps the military are concerned about the possibility of losing jets in skirmishes with ETs. But what if this information relates to activities of the U.S. Naval Space Command? Gary McKinnon hacked into computers at the Earl Naval Weapons Station as well as NASA before identifying unretouched photos of UFOs along with records of non-terrestrial officers and their ship-to-ship transfers. Does the saucer of a gray alien speak of a secret space-based warfare dimension to U.S. Navy operations in Libya? Examiner. What do you think? Are recent military actions in Libya governed by or in opposition to existing ET treaties from the time of President Eisenhower? ET treaties and hidden agendas affecting the Earth will be the topic for this Saturday night's Age of Discovery, exploring the positive timeline, with guest Jim Nichols, along with panelists Exopolitics founder Alfred Lambermont Weber, time traveler Andrew D. Bishago, and cosmic mythologist Laura Magdalene Eisenhower. Age of Discovery is a twice-monthly, 2-hour online forum produced in Vancouver, distributed over Ustream.tv, and hosted by Vancouver, BC journalist John Kelly. I'm John Kelly. Thank you for listening to the Secret Message Report. We'll be back again.